saw how to define our first XML document and then use CSS to give the XML an appearance. The CSS approach, though, has some downsides. First, there's no way to reorder the XML content using CSS. And in fact, some people would argue that CSS shouldn't even be used for that. It's just used to give tags an appearance. The second problem is that if you have an XML tag that has meaning, and you want to take an XML tag and based upon its value perform some functions, CSS doesn't really give you a good way of doing that. It's just a way of styling the appearance of the XML data. And there are certainly certain circumstances where that's going to work just fine. However, we'll see how to use something called the DOM, or Document Object Model, to perform really fine level control over XML content in web pages. The Document Object Model is a standard set of APIs or functions for working with document content. It's platform, browser, and language neutral. The examples I'll be showing you here use JavaScript in a browser, but there are DOM implementations for other languages as well, like Python and Java and C# and so on. The DOM represents the document content as a tree structure, and the contents of the tree are called nodes. So let's take a look at an example and see how this works. Suppose I had an HTML document, and this is a pretty simple one on the left here. I've got my HTML tag, and inside there I've got the head and the body. The head has a title, the body has a paragraph. The DOM represents this document as a tree structure. At the top is the HTML node. Inside the HTML node are the head and the body, and these are said to be child nodes of the HTML node, which is the parent. Then inside the head and body are the title and the paragraph tag. So far we've talked about tags, but the actual text content of these tags are themselves nodes. So inside the title tag you have a text string called document, and inside the paragraph you have a text string which has the value paragraph text. So each one of these is a node in the document, and we can express the relationship between these nodes using familiar family names. So for example, the head and the body are child nodes of the HTML node, which is said to be the parent. The title is a child of the head node. The document is a child of the title node. The head and the body nodes are said to be siblings of each other. And you'll see this terminology used throughout the DOM API. All right, let's talk about some important DOM properties that you'll come across when using the functions. The first four provide information about any given node. So for example, the node name property is the name of the node. Now for a tag, it's going to be the tag name. For things like comments and text nodes, it's going to be a special string like hash comment or hash text. The node type property is the node's type. It's a numerical value that represents what kind of node it is. There are numerical constants for things like elements, comments, text, and so on. The node value property is the value of the node, and this varies based on the node type. But for example, the node value of a text node would be the text content. Then there's the attributes property, which is only valid for elements, and it's an array of the attributes and their values that appear on the tag. There are properties also for accessing the family relationship of nodes. So for example, if you have a node and you access the parent node property of that node, then that gives you the parent of the node that you're looking at. If there isn't one, for example, if you're already at the document root, then the value is null. There's a child nodes array, which lists the child nodes of the current node. And again, if there aren't any, then it's just an empty array. You can also ask for a node's first child and last child. You can also ask for its previous sibling and next sibling. There are functions for taking nodes and moving them around in the document. For example, the append child function inserts a new node at the end of a given element's existing children. The other functions do what they say. For example, remove child removes an element. Insert before inserts a new node before the given node. You can also replace an existing node inside a parent with a new one by calling the replace child function. There are also properties for doing things like accessing and creating document content. For example, the document element refers to the root document element. There are create functions like create element, create text node, and so on that allow you to create new nodes of the relevant type. There are also functions for accessing nodes in the document. For example, the getElementsByTagName function will return an array of tags that match a given tag name. So for example, you can ask the document to get elements by tag name and give it something like P, and that will give you all the P tags. You can also call getElementById, and that will return a single element that matches the ID that you pass in. So if the element has an ID attribute set to a certain string, you can retrieve it using this function. There are some other important properties too. For example, you can get and set the attributes on a tag and remove a given attribute from an element. There's also a property called innerHTML, and that will give you or allow you to set the HTML content of a given tag simply by passing in a text string that contains well-formed HTML. And finally, there's the data property, which gets the text data of an element, comment, or text node. We're going to be exercising these functions to perform various operations on XML content in our web pages.